The Solovetsky Monastery Uprising was an uprising of Old Believer monks, known as the Raskal, of the northern Solovetsky Monastery against the Tsar's policies. The uprising involved the siege of the Solovetsky Monastery by the Tsar's forces over the years from 1668 to 1676. The uprising started in the summer of 1668, when the high-ranking clergy of the monastery rose in opposition to Patriarch Nikon's ecclesiastic reform soon after his defrocking. The majority of regular monks came out against the centralization of the Russian Orthodox Church and the Russian government, which had been reinforcing this centralization. Lay brothers, monastic workers, and pilgrims protested against the feudal oppression and monastic serfdom regulations in particular. Around 450 to 500 rebels took part in the Solovetsky Monastery Uprising, which began under the slogan of the struggle for the old faith, in connection with the Old Believers movement. On June 22, 1668, a Streltsy unit under the command of I. Volkov arrived at the Solovetsky Islands to suppress the rebels. The monastery locked itself up and refused to let the Streltsy in. The uprising was supported by local peasants and workers, which would allow the monastery to withstand more than 7 years of siege without experiencing any serious difficulties with supplies and other necessities. Besides the regular food assistance from the outside, many visiting workers, runaway soldiers, and even Streltsy made their way onto the island and joined the rebels. In the early 1670s, a large number of Stenka Razan's supporters joined the monastery uprising, which would liven it up even more. The besieged would often sally out of the monastery under the leadership of elected sotniks, such as the runaway boyar Kolopai Voronin, monastery peasant S. Vasilev. The runaway Don Cossacks P. Zapruder and G. Kravonaga supervised the construction of new fortifications. By 1674, there had already been some 1,000 streltsy and a large number of guns outside the walls of the Solovetsky monastery. The siege was now headed by Voivoda Imesharinov. The rebels had been successfully defending themselves until the betrayal of the monk named Feotist, who showed Streltsy an unprotected window of the monastery's White Tower. This quickened the end of the uprising, which would be suppressed with an incredible brutality in January 1676. Only 60 rebels out of 500 survived the seizure of the monastery. Large supplies of food stored in the monastery, still sufficient to withstand the siege if it would have continued for several more years, were discovered in the monastery after the uprising was suppressed. Almost all of the remaining insurgents were later executed.